You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio. So hey everyone, Harsha here, and welcome back to another episode of Changing Reality. We're so excited to have you guys with us. And for all of you who may be new to the show, this might be your first time tuning in. Welcome one, welcome all. Changing Reality is a show here on WQHS Radio at the University of Pennsylvania that features phenomenal people from all walks of life who are in essence changing their own reality. So we'll be hanging out and interviewing social change makers, entrepreneurs, business owners, to top executives, industry leaders, and even artists, musicians, people from all walks of life and all around the world who are doing amazing, amazing things. And this show is something that's very, very personal to my heart because we get to hear these inspiring stories on how they're not only doing things that change the world around them, but change the world for those who come after them, for those in their spaces as well. And I wanted to do this show simply because I feel like there are a lot of people out there who do phenomenal things and make waves in the lives of those around them. And I believe that by listening to these stories, people will be able to pick up the lessons from the past and apply it in their own futures. And I'm just super passionate about hearing how people can change their world in their own capacity. And to show you the power of stories in a sense and how much I believe in it, personally, I actually founded a youth movement called Ascendance in Malaysia, which is where I'm from. That today is an international youth movement that works with global organizations, including our Ministry of Education in Malaysia, that helps provide an alternative education platform for any student who wants to change their reality. And we work from students from elementary all the way up to high school through various sessions, programs, experiential learning activities, and projects that help them discover their passion, learn about themselves and the world around them, and start their own careers while they're still in school that create meaningful impact not just for themselves, but for those around them too. And to date, we've been fortunate to work with over 35,000 students in 970 communities across 28 countries and have incubated countless number of student-run projects and social enterprises run by students aged 8 to 20 years old. So helping everyday students change their reality. And the foundation that enables us to do that are kind individuals who are willing to share what they went through, what they experienced, in hopes that others like them who are right now in school will be able to take those lessons and use that to change the world. So that's how important stories are. And if you guys have any questions about it, if there's anything in particular you want to know about that could change your reality, let us know in the chat below and we can take it up as another day's topic. But today we have another phenomenal speaker for you guys to hear from. Today's speaker is the Vice President of Product Development at Visa. He's someone who leads multiple teams across various geographic locations, developing the future platforms and solutions for web and mobile applications for payment management, business intelligence, data engineering and data analytics, and many other fields. Along with the other development teams at Visa, they innovate to build leading-edge full-service payment management and fraud management solutions. So someone who is well-versed in this industry, but has a unique journey of getting there. And when I heard his story, I was personally extremely inspired, and I want to share that inspiration with all of you. So without further ado, let's invite our speaker today, Mr. Sanjib, to our virtual stage.
Hello, good evening, Harsha.
Hello. Hi, Sanjib. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. There was a lot of energy in your intro. I hope to match that up.
All right. Now I hope to match up my own energy. Okay, I'm a little bit scared. But thank you so much for joining us. It really, really means a lot that you're willing to come here, talk to our students, talk to the people that we work with. And personally, I hope you've been having a good day. I've heard that recently you guys have been returning to working at office.
Yeah. It's been a little bit of a strange world that we have been living in for the past couple of years. Now it's changing all around us. Like your show calls for changing reality, where our reality has kind of changed over the last couple of years, and it's still evolving. So yeah, it's a different workplace, but I'm excited. I think like I was chatting, I went back to our office for the first time almost a year and a half. Feels good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to norm, I guess, if I could use that.
Okay, back to normal. I'm not sure where normal is at the moment, but I hope we get back there soon. But really, thank you for joining in. You have a very, very interesting journey, and you today are someone who is vice president in one of the extremely large company, not just in the US but all across the world. So, like, it's an honor to actually even meet you and, and hear your story. But you didn't actually start off in this industry, right? I think, if I'm not mistaken, you started off in engineering back when you were doing your bachelor's degree. So, when you were a student like us, did you know that your career was going to turn out like this? Or were you as lost and clueless as us? Like, was there a grand plan, or was there just a, as we go, we'll figure it out?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie my way out of this, Harsha. No, no. When I was a student, I never had any long-term plans. I think even sometimes, even now, when I think about it, I don't think I really placed very long-term bets on how things are going to evolve, because things change. So no, when I was in school, um, undergrad or even earlier, uh, honestly, I didn't really plan that well ahead as to what I'm going to do. Even in school, I've changed, the subject that I was kind of majoring in, and I kind of switched, because not because I knew that's what my career is going to go. I was just playing by my interest. Like, something I was doing didn't feel that right. Something else looked more interesting, and I just went with the flow on that. But again, these are just changes I did with what was appealing to me at that point, but not really with any grand plan ahead of me to back myself up. No, I wish I was that smart when I was young. I really was not.
So the rest of us lost college students have a bit of hope left, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, yep. So tell us a bit about your time when you were a student, in a sense. When you went into engineering, was this something that you were passionate about that point of time, or was there something else that you were working on? How did your journey start?
Well, so again, I've been in this country when I came to do my grad. It's been, shoot, 25 years now, so it's a long time. But if I go even further back, growing up in India, there was really not many options when we were students. This is like 30 years plus back. Not to give my age in here, but I'm really going back like 3 decades back. So you just had to be good in school, and then you had to kind of pick and choose. Really wanted to do more tag to mathematics and science, then you were more geared towards engineering. If you really wanted to be more on the biological science side, you could become a take the line of a doctor. Or if you were more into maths and economics, there was another line to go to. So there was really limited choices, and even the smaller the city, the choices dwindled down further and further. You really didn't have the exposure into a bunch of other tracks that maybe the other major cities have. So no, me growing up, not that I planned to become an engineer, but to me it was like, which one do I pick, biological sciences or mathematics? I thought that I could get my way out of not working too hard if I picked mathematics and science, which came a little bit naturally to me. That led me to pick up engineering as my field. And when I started my undergrad, I started with electrical engineering as my undergrad. Again, not that I was really into hardware and designing chips or any of that sort. It just fell into my lap, and I just took it and finished my undergrad. But as the journey started, as we decided to come to US for further studies, in the back of my mind, I always thought that I'm going to switch to something more that I could visually experience. I think hardware, I was struggling to kind of put the concepts and see the evolution of what work I'm doing. It felt much more natural to me when it was more on the software side. So I started my grad here in, again, electrical engineering, but then I switched to computer science. Again, because at that point, like I said, it felt like my interest and my abilities would be well suited to that, versus, and nothing against electrical engineering. I have some great friends who are still doing that, and they have done fantastically well in their careers. It's just, for me, it just felt that I needed to have a little more visual interaction with what I'm working with.
Very, very fascinating. And I think, like, it's also a very brave choice, because many of us, I feel, we try something out and then we realize maybe this is not the exact direction we want to go to. I want to switch it a little bit, or I want to try something new. And not everyone is confident to make that decision. I mean, looking at your success is probably the right decision. But for those of us right now in a position where we are doing something and we've been working on that for a couple of years, but then we feel like, oh, maybe I want to try something else, in a sense, or I want to switch my major over to another field. what would your advice be for someone who was in that emotional state probably a while ago?
Well, there's two things, right? I think there's two things that always at least has forced me to change tracks. One, I was not good at what I was doing, so that's an easy decision. Hey, I'm not good at this, so I might as well, do something else. That's like a change by force. That you better do it, otherwise you're gonna be stuck with something you're just not good at, right? So that's an easy one to make, and I want everyone to feel that way. That if you're doing something that we feel we are not good at, and doesn't mean that we lack any skills. It's just sometimes the skills that we have is not applicable to what the task at hand is, right? Which is perfectly normal and natural. I want everyone to feel that way. That hey, I'm just not good at it doesn't mean that I'm just not good. It just means I'm not good at that. I might just do something else. So a lot of my changes was that I just felt, whether call it my interest, call it my state of mind. I just felt I was just not good at what I was doing, and I was just not very engaged or motivated enough to work harder to do well. And something else always picked my interest more. So I would say it's a combination. It's not me not being fully engaged, because at the end of the day, all of you guys are smart enough. You can make things work. But if you're not fully engaged and 100% into it, then I feel it's a little bit of a waste of time. You might as well just pick something that you might not be good at to begin with, but you really are more engaged and you can make it work. So to me, the choices were always that: do I continue with what I have where I'm not wholeheartedly into it, or let me just pick something that I feel I can be better at than what I'm doing right now? So even in my career, if I go back, I think some of the changes that I've done even after school, a lot of the changes have been where I felt I was doing okay, but others who were doing similar to what I was doing, I felt they were doing much better than me. So whether it was, coming off from getting the first job as a programmer, I honestly felt like I was decent enough, but I could see many folks around me that were doing much better, in that. And if I felt like my interest was in something else and I was not putting all my effort into just being a good programmer, my mind was always running into other stuff. I thought that I might as well shape my career a little bit differently than just being, good at what I was doing at that point.
No, I really, really like that advice. It's not just about can I get the job done? Is it am I fully utilizing my skills? Am I fully engaged? Is this really like the best fit? Which I feel like sometimes, especially as new college students, that fear like kicks in a sense, and we forget to think about things like that. So thank you. I think it's a very, very good reminder. And for someone who did the grad degree, came out from I think University of Daytona, amazing university, and you went on into this field of I think at that point of time software engineering when you first started. How was it
Mhm.
like going into the working world? Was it everything that you was expected and was taught, or was it full of confusion as we've heard it would be?
I was terrified. Getting a job was the easier part. That was not a difficult thing to do. And again, back in the day, I'm talking about like 99, 2000, around that time. Getting a job was not the problem. But me personally, coming out of school, and that was my first literal job experience. I hadn't done any internships, so I had never really stepped into. I hate to use the word real world, but because school is as real, as it is also. But into the corporate world, that was my first steps, and I was terrified. I didn't know what I was doing. I was not confident enough in that I can do it. It's not like a school project that I can take it and do it at my own pace with my friends on the side. This is something that on a daily basis we were held accountable to do certain things. Again, not that I could not do it, but yeah, I had some severe lack of confidence, if I might use the word, in truly being able to stand up to it. So yeah, it was a shaky experience to start off with, for sure.
And how was it? And how did was there like a particular turning point when you realized or came out of it, or was it just a gradual process of getting more confident in yourself? Because I feel like one of the things I work with, with a lot of students who are entering this working world or are entering real world projects where they are accountable for, and it's not that they lack talent in a sense; they're very talented. It's just that, as you mentioned, the fear, the unconfidence, the being accountable for something for the first time, it gets to me. I think it gets to them. So, how did you learn to manage that aspect of it?
Yeah, so again, I don't know if it's just me, but I talk to a lot of interns right now who are coming out of schools that I see, in the last few years. They come across as very, very confident. So I don't think it's it's something that you guys really should worry about. I've talked to enough interns and new college grads in various locations, be it even India or be it in different US locations here. I think one trait that I definitely see and I'm kind of envious about, because when I compare that to myself, I'm like, damn, what was I, when I was coming out, and I'm comparing to an intern coming and doing a presentation on AI and using some model to do something in our teams. And I'm like, I mean, at your age, I was probably, drawing something on the whiteboard. That's all I could do. Forget about, actually doing something that shows. So I think the confidence is definitely something that I see more present in today's, folks. Again, I'm not going to use the word in today's generation. It makes me feel like I'm like from 3 generations back. But for me, it was a gradual thing. It's not like suddenly on a, snap. I felt more comfortable. To me, it was, gradually trying to make my place in the workspace, if I might say that, and being just okay to slowly realize that, hey, I'm not too bad. I can do this thing. I can start to slowly express my opinion. I can, talk to people a little more freely. So all of it was, to me, definitely a gradual journey. As I got a little more comfortable with the people around me, with the surroundings, I think I got a little more confident. And by the year 2 or 3, I think I was pretty sure, about my standing, what I could do. I had my connections, which was back in the day, it was a little hard to make connections. In today's world, it's a little more easier. So no, it was not a snap. I had to work on it. Just stay the course, be confident that hey, it's okay. And of course, I had a good support system of my friends, who all were kind of going through similar phase. We all came out of the school together. We all had different jobs in different companies, but we still kind of lived together, so we could exchange our journeys. And I could see that everybody more or less was going through the kind of a similar journey. So no, it was definitely, I was not smart enough to make it a snap one day and I'm super, confident and I can get things under control. It was definitely a gradual thing for me.
So there's no magic pill that I can take and then suddenly have the confidence to, okay,
Yeah, I,
unfortunately.
I, I, I wish I had it back in the day. I did not.
You mentioned support system, which is something that I believe in a lot and that I feel makes or breaks like anyone's journey in a sense. How important was support system for you, especially in those early years of going through this phase of becoming from a terrified new grad to someone who's established and who actually knows what they're doing now and oversees so much work? How has your support system played a role in that, and how has it evolved over the years?
Absolutely. I think, without a support system, I would nowhere be close to what I'm able to do at this point in my life. So whether at a very young age, it was my elder sibling and my parents, having that very good support system where, honestly, that was not that much pressure put on to go. You kind of, knock the hell out of your grades in schools. I didn't go through that kind of a pressure. I think my older sibling, was always a topper in his class, and all credit to him. So he kind of took all that heat, with him, and I was left alone, saying that, hey, as long as you pass and go to the next grade, we are good with. Let's focus on the elder one. Now, in all seriousness, I think my parents definitely, kind of let us find our journey, and they all just made sure that, hey, you're progressing. As long as you kind of be in the right path, then we're just going to leave you alone. And of course, friends. First is family, and then it's friends. I was lucky enough to have a very core group of friends who we kind of grew up together. And it's funny that a lot of my, or most of my closest friends even today, are the folks who were with, each other on all through this journey, whether it's undergrad in India, coming here and doing grad school in different schools in US, because obviously not all of us ended up in the same school. We were all over the, US map when it came to schools. But we kind of made a conscious choice to kind of move in together when we started our first journey into the corporate world. So now when we meet and we look back on the struggles, it's just very funny for us. We didn't treat that as a struggle, right? For us, it was like, hey, we were all friends, going through. It was fun for us. So it's pretty funny how we look back on things. But that support system is what I definitely feel, helped each other along. We were always kind of pulling, rooting for each other and helping each other out. So to all you folks, I think I know many of you have wonderful circles, but it's very important to have that constant, in our lives, which is that support system, whether that's friends, whether that's family, whether that's a combination. I think that always works out very, very well.
Okay, very, very nice answer. And I read somewhere that most successful people, they go successful not just as individuals, but they go as a group. So when one person reaches success, it brings the whole group up, and it's kind of like this group mind that from sharing resources, sharing stories, sharing ideas, elevates everyone. So I think you and your friends probably embody that success in a way, and that is very nice to hear for everyone right now who are in their own circles. And even as an individual in your career, you started off as a software developer, if I'm not mistaken, at a startup like place called Cybersource, and
Hmm.
you progressed there from software developer to, if I'm not mistaken, overseeing their team to engineering manager. And that is quite interesting because many people, they're good at one thing and they focus on like particularly that field, and when they become a manager or when they become someone in leadership position, it's not the same, or they have trouble managing because they were just focused on their thing. But you have a little bit of a different like view of this. You actually someone who, as you mentioned, I think a little bit of a giveaway in the beginning, you focused on the things that you were good at in a sense, so that you were engaged in. So for you, how was it like going from someone who's doing the work very hands-on to overseeing people who were probably doing the work like at the position you used to be, and you having to be the person who manages the things instead?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. Again, it goes back to like when I started my career, and for the first few years, I was kind of mainly being in the team, part of a programmer or being a team lead developer. But like I said, when I looked around, I always thought that there were a lot of people who were much more into it, much more from their own skill set, personality. They were more into programming stuff, and I was always kind of getting distracted from actually doing the programming versus thinking little bit from a wider lens as to why are we doing this, right? Why is this important? How can we do this better? Who do I need to talk to to get things done? So more of my time I was gradually going towards that rather than sit and finish tasks on at hand. So I think it's a combination of those two. I enjoyed those experiences. I enjoyed those conversations, trying to set up a body of work. Then a team can, who are really technically, like I said, were much greater than me, could do the right execution. So again, it's up to the individual which kind of career path they take. There is growth on both sides, but I felt like for me, I had to step away, from the actual execution part to more of a defining that body of work and kind of defining the importance of that work, working closely with our business counterparts, and I felt I could do more there. And it's hard, it's not easy. And like you said, one thing that I always keep mentoring my team members, that first move where you're giving up things that you could do yourself and now rely on somebody else to actually do it. It's a little difficult to do, and you have to have that faith and that patience with your team to kind of do it as you want this to be executed. So definitely it's a little bit of a letting go of few stuff and focusing on other stuff. But like I said, I knew I was much better off helping the organization if I did more of that and help my team to kind of do the actual execution part. So yeah, I think I made the right call. I'm still kind of progressing in that part, but there are fantastic people who have grown in their individual contributor kind of levels. But I think it just felt right. I think that was my interest. I knew I was good at it and I was always getting better at it. So yeah, I think that was a good decision that I took for myself.
Was there any projects or stories that you can tell us of times that you worked with the team and you started to doubt, like, oh my goodness, like did I make the right decision? Or any initial like projects when you were working on something with others which you reflected on, that am I really like equipped for this leadership position in that very beginning stages?
But I wouldn't say beginning. I would say it happens even now. But it's not about beginning stages. See, the thing is, I think we have to be a little comfortable in making a few decisions with not all data points, right? I think more and more as the scale becomes larger, it's very hard to make decisions if you have to be perfect, right? You make a decision, you kind of go with whatever data point is available, you feel what is right, and you make a decision, and in the back of your mind you just have to accept that some of these won't work, and it is okay if it doesn't work, right? I think if there is a fear of like I need my all my data points and I have to make the perfect decision. That's just never, there's never a perfect time to make a perfect decision. That's just not how it works, right? Now your decisions looking back can look perfect and you can take the credit for it by all means. But if anyone says that, hey, I have every data point, I can guarantee that this is the perfect decision, I think they are just uh, not being very honest. So I'm happy to be wrong. I think that's one thing that I have done for myself and my teams, that hey, will, with enough of conviction and data in hand, we're going to make a decision, we'll go a certain route, and sometimes things won't work, and we'll have to face the consequences of it. You know, take it on the chin and move on. It's okay. I think we look that as a learning for next time to see what we could have done better, or did I miss a red flag that was obviously apparent, but I couldn't see it. But as long as that's not the case, we did the best with the decision. I mean, with the data at hand, then I think we should be okay. But yeah, if you want me to start counting instances or decisions that didn't go well, I think I have a lot, and that's okay. We should be okay with it.
That's very interesting. Do you mind sharing one or two stories with us about the times where you've been in this situation? Because I feel like sometimes as a college student, we're very fortunate that all the information that we're going to be playing around with is information. So it's not, so not necessarily is it something in a real world working situation. And I see that when I'm in an actual situation where I'm accountable for a project, where I'm leading something at work, it's like it, as you said, not all the information is present. Even if it is, you're not sure where to get it, you're not sure of the authenticity, and you're not sure whether this is relevant to the decision you're making. So there's like a lot more gray area and uncertainty in the real world, as you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier. So tell us maybe about like one or two stories of decisions that you had to make in that position, so that we can all feel the emotion with you for a minute.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll give you an example. What we do in the corporate world in many times is something that has to be useful to our clients, right? At the end of the day, we are not in here to do a pet project to feel good about ourselves, as much as we would like to do that. And I know we can get away with some of that when we are in school, but unfortunately, some of that ends once we are in the real world. And I think sometimes it's hard to let go. The engineer in us kind of takes over what the business realities are, right? I mean, what do the clients really need? Is this really a customer problem that we are trying to solve, or am I trying to do something to show off the technical abilities of the team, right? So we had this situation where we felt we, from an architecture and from a design and from using the latest of the the technology stack that we had at disposal, and we created this fantastic solution for our customer. But when we turn around and try to get the customer use it, they were like, how is this really useful, to me? So we were very proud of all the bells and whistles that we created, that we thought that the customer would be really happy, that we spent so much time, energy, money in creating this solution for them. And it didn't matter to them, because for them it was very important on how easy and simple, in a simple manner, they could get the job done. And if you looked around and look back at what we created, yeah, I could put that in my technical resume, but I cannot put that in a business sense, in the business resume, because it didn't solve really the client's problem. And in fact, it created more problems, for the client, because they had to now not only learn a new system, but they then had to use the system to support their customers on the other end. So, and this was one of the very large global brands, and I remember, traveling up to their locations, talking to them. And yet, it's one more instance we had to just take it off the chin. On one side, I'm really proud of the work that my teams did. On the other side, I'm sitting there across the table, from someone saying that this is not good, it's terrible, this doesn't solve their problem at all. So and I think that's a little bit difference in when we come into the corporate world, is we really have to know the pulse of our customers, of our client. What do they really need, right? I mean, what are they really looking for? And I'm sure when you try to set up your show and your sessions, you're also looking for the exact value, right? I mean, am I doing something that generates the most value for folks who are going to be consuming this product? I think that's a little bit shift I feel from the school life, coming out into the corporate world. In school life, I think you can still show off all of your technical abilities. Even if it doesn't end up solving a real world problem, you still have a pretty good uh, thing to be proud of that we have done as students and I have done. Like if I look back at my undergrad projects or masters, when I was doing that, looking at back at my projects, I was pretty proud back then. But now I look back, I'm saying, what the hell was I thinking? How am I going to apply that into the real world? What problem is it going to solve? So I think that's a shift that folks, just have to make. And yeah, I have many such stories where it just things didn't work out in the real, with the client as it worked in our offices and in our workshops. It looked fantastic. It didn't pan out well with the customer.
I think you actually wrote an article about this recently. Wait, it's coming to me. I think the exact title was like "The Complex Art of Keeping It Simple" or something like that. I was
Yeah,
reading it and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is so relevant. Because one of the things that I struggle with is if I say this, I might embarrass myself, but I also dabble a little bit in this website and IT field. I run a different startup other than a sentence and changing reality that does websites for clients and all of that. And one of the things that I personally struggle with is sometimes it's like, as you mentioned, the thing that we are excited about is not the best solution for the client in a sense. And one of the things that we've tried to instill in all of the things that we provide our clients is making sure that we actually think about what is the simplest way for them to achieve their goal. So sometimes it might like even though I provide website service, it might not even be a website for them. They may just want to do something much simpler than that. And as the service provider, it's a bit of a difference in a way of looking of things, as you mentioned, from going to what can I do into what do they need in a sense. And keeping
yeah,
it simple is something that is
correct.
definitely a major part of it. So for you, in a sense, when your team is in that flow, especially when we work with creative people, I feel, which happens a lot in the whole IT industry as well. When you work with creative people and you see them getting into this flow of coming up with complex things and coming up with all these innovative solutions, but you start seeing that it's getting a little bit out of alignment with what the client wants. What do you do? Like how do you steer them back to the right direction?
Yeah, I mean it's hard, right? I think, and good that you reminded me. I forgot about that article. It's funny. I wanted to name it "Keep It Simple, Stupid," but then I thought, people might be offended if I. It's not like I wanted to call myself stupid, but I didn't know if people would take it that way. So I had to change the title of that article. So no, I think that happens, Harsha. I think that's a valid point. People are generally very passionate about things that we do, and assuming everybody's into it, they're very very passionate. So to come and say that, hey, this will not work, it's not always a very easy message. Whether somebody is giving me that message or now I'm trying to give that message to somebody else, we always have a bias towards the work that we do, right? And sometimes we are so much into it, that we have kind of blinders on how this work will be kind of consumed and represented to the outside world. Even small conversations have that kind of an impact, right? I mean, if you're saying something, you might think that, hey, this was my way of saying it, but the interpretation is out left to everyone consuming that message. Who knows, right, how people are going to interpret that message. So it's not a very easy thing to do, to be quite honest, because we have very highly skilled technical folks who have spent, let's say, months in trying to build something. They have kind of dotted their i's, crossed their t's, and they're very confident. And to walk in and say, you know what, this is not going to work, guys, we'll have to kind of do it differently. Or yes, we have spent 6 months into it, but just like recently it has happened where we said, okay, I know we spent 6 months, let's take our losses, done, this is not going to work, let's go back to the drawing board, let's see how best we can solve the needs of the client that we are hearing, because this definitely is not working out. So uh, these are not very popular decisions that we have to take, but at the end those are the right decisions, because no matter how good we think something is, because we are self-biased into it, if it doesn't work, or if you kind of get the feelers that it's not going to work with some early feedback, then you might as well swallow the pride and do it differently, versus still going at it saying, no, 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 this person doesn't like it, let me try somebody else. Oh, you don't like it too, fine, let me try somebody else. There is somebody who's going to like what we are doing. It usually doesn't work like that. I think it's very easy to get some early feedback, and it's really important to get some early feedback from folks who are not deep into the woods with what work we are doing, and you're going to get a very non-biased opinion on the actual body of work. And this happens everywhere. I was involved in another startup, like doing on the side with our friends, and we were spending our nights, and we thought we were really going to change the way e-commerce is going to be done, and we were so much into it, spending our nights, and our wives and kids, they were not happy. And then thankfully, to my family, who has been a great support, but they were not happy that we were spending all these nights. But we truly believe that this is it, guys. We have solved how this thing needs to be done, and we go meet a few uh, partner firms and stuff, and we put it out there, and they start poking holes into what we were trying to do, and we come out after a couple of meetings saying, damn, why did we not think about that, man? Why did we not think about that? And suddenly, it's not like, again, I'm not saying you give up on what you're trying to do. That's not the point. But it's always good to get feedback and be ready to pivot or change and modify what you're trying to do, and not be very hard on, hey, this is it, and this is, I believe in it. I don't care what others are saying. So I think we should just be a little more flexible and adaptable to the feedback that we get.
Very, very good advice. And since you mentioned feedback, I have to ask. One of the things that I struggle with, or I used to struggle a lot more than now, is accepting feedback in a constructive manner. Like people, like feedback is present for me. It's just that sometimes I get very personally attached to the product or the service that's being provided. That the feedback feels like a personal attack, which I know now in hindsight is not true in a sense. But in that moment when you're getting this feedback, and especially you on one side, there's something that you worked really hard on, or it could be like you have to feedback this again to your team in a sense. How do you actually process that in a constructive way? Or like what is in your going through your mind when you're receiving this feedback?
Okay. I mean, if you're not taking it nicely first time around, that means you're human. So it's okay. Uh, and like I said, the more invested you're on something, it's more harder to actually get a feedback that doesn't align with our own thinking, right? It's not easy, Harsha, to be quite honest. I think typically what I have done is not react to a feedback right away. I think it's always good to take feedback, and it's always good to get feedback, and hopefully we have the right support system, or the folks that we know are going to give us that unbiased feedback. But you don't have to react to every feedback that is coming your way right then and there, right? So you can always keep taking feedback, and then try to spend some time analyzing that feedback to see, is this something that we truly missed? Because it's not about whether we were smart or not smart about something, but it's always easy to miss a certain things as we are shaping up a product, or shaping up a project, or whatever you want to call it, or how we go about doing things. It's always easy to miss a few things. So as long as the feedback helps us connect a few dots that we might not have connected, or connected it, with whatever data we had at that point, and we feel that, oh, I could go this route and connect it this way. So I think we should be open to the feedback. I'm not saying we constantly change ourselves on every feedback that we get. Absolutely not the point. I think we are who we are, with our habits and what we have done in the past. We're not going to change just because we get a feedback. Um, but we should make sure we have the right folks giving us that feedback, who have the right intentions, who have the unbiased views on what we are doing, and then analyze it and see what applies, and what doesn't apply. It's okay. It's okay to ignore some feedback. We don't have to constantly take feedback and changing ourselves. We just have to see if we are picking the right ones, and making some changes on our sides.
Okay. Very, very good advice. Thank you for answering my personal insecurities and questions. To our audience, if you guys have questions, you can ask them in the chat. If not, I'm just going to ask all my problems out. So, like, I'm just extending the opportunity to you guys, but it's fine. It's fine either way. But okay, very, very good answers. And you also, as I mentioned earlier, you manage today a global team of different countries, different regions, and all of that. This is something that is not at all easy, and something that's very, very admirable. How do you build the skills of a leader in a sense? Because being a leader has all of these things that we mentioned and more. You have to create that support system for your team, you have to be able to give them feedback, you have to set the direction right. So, and it's something that you do probably effortlessly now. But for those of us who are in that very early stages of leading, like what's your advice for us in a sense? Like, I'm in a position where with my team right now is growing. From when we started last year, we were at like 7-8 people. Now we're at 50-60 people. So it's like suddenly I have to think about things that I never had to think about before. And having been probably in that position when you grew in your leadership track, what are the key things that we have to keep an eye out when we work with people in a sense?
I wish I could say a lot of happy hours, but that's not the only thing. I know. I think again, in my humble opinion, there are folks who manage much larger global teams, and all credit to them. I think to me, it's just the having that little bit of a personal connect with people, right, and not just be about the task at hand or the work at hand. I always give this advice to others also, that if every time, Harsha, I'm talking to you is about something I need from you, or something that I want you to do, that's not the right, kind of leader relationship, right? I would love to come and just say, hey, Harsha, how are you doing? How was the coffee? What did you get for lunch? How's your day looking like? I think to me these little interactions, or these personable interactions, are very, very important to me and very close to my heart. So as I mean, it gets a little harder, of course, at the scale when the teams grow. But I've been very true to, whenever it's a different city, to go there, spend that time, or pick up the phone and talk to the person. Of course, there will be instances where I'll be like, damn it, is this done or is this not done? Of course, those conversations will happen. I'm not saying that won't happen. That's part of the job. But I think having that personal relationship with folks is very, very important. Once you kind of build that relationship, that trust, then more often than not, whether that's me for the for my bosses, or people in my teams, I think once there is a personal relationship in there, they're going to go back for you. You don't have to force the issue on that. So for me, like I said, I it's not like I love to travel. I don't mind traveling, but for me, one of the key things is to have that personal interaction with the teams, with the leaders, to see what is important to them, and how can someone like me in my position help what they want to do with their careers, with their teams, and really focus on that part. And then yes, when the need is there, we always talk about the task at hand. uh, but like I said, that's very important to me. I would love to have that personal interaction. That's what I expect from the person that I report into, and that's what I would make myself available. For the folks, just be there. Don't just make it all about work. Is what has worked for me. I'm not saying that that's the only way, but that is something that I really try to follow as much as I can.
No, very, very good advice, and definitely something that I think many people need to listen to. And in the last 1.5 years, we've been, as we might talked about a little bit earlier, we've been in a very strange, almost out of normal space where personal interaction is something that I think has been the only thing keeping people together in a sense. Because in a time where it's so easy to get lost, or like in this pandemic, among the negativity, among the work, among everything else, I think personal interaction is the only thing that keeps things like solid, like keeps people sane at times. How did you manage like leading the team, working on your own things, and managing all of these different things during the pandemic? And then how is that changing for you now as the pandemic slowly peters out in a way?
Yeah, it's hard. I think that's to me, and not just for me. I think for a lot of folks who like to kind of be there, talking to people, seeing people. I think this has been a really, really tough time. It was fun for the first few weeks, and not just for me, but for my family. I have two young kids. They were very, very happy that they like, hey, I get to see my dad all the time. He's right here. The schools were closed, and I was at home, and I think it was the first time they were seeing me for such a long time, just being at home, which in the last 10 years has not happened. So it was fun for the first month or two, but then it gets little tiring. Again, this is my opinion. I know some folks would say, I love working at home. I wish I would do this forever in my life. All you know whatever works. So I'm not going to try to preach that this is the way. But for me, like I said, the way I have spent my career, it was very important for me to be there, be with people. Talk to them. Have those conversations. Because what has happened is, with working from home, is call it the water cooler talk, or call it the hallway conversation, you name it, whatever you want, those have kind of gone away, and what you're left with is the conversations around work. I mean, I open up my calendar, from early morning to late night, it's one discussion after another about work, right? I mean, that's all that shows up, and meetings have increased, and calendars have been full. So I definitely miss that, not just as a break. I mean, definitely it's a mental break, but I felt there's a lot of positive that comes with those conversations, which are a little more ad hoc in nature. So I would say, if anything, that lost is that unknown ad hoc conversations that you just end up having because you're walking around. Let's say in your campus, you're walking around, you're gonna bump into five folks. Now you might not like all five, and you might not talk to all five. But let's say even if there's a couple that you want to have a conversation on, you never know. I mean, something good might come out of that conversations. I think those are the things that I felt I really missed, and I so that's why I was looking forward to getting back to like I use the word norm. Like you said, I agree with you. I don't know what norm is anymore, but I would love to get back to that state because I felt I badly missed those kind of ad hoc interactions.
Yep, yep. And how can we, for many of us, like one of the things that is a good thing that happened like during the pandemic is we started working with a lot of people in different parts of the world more efficiently, as you mentioned. So meetings the last time would take 3 hours because you have to drive there, you have to meet them for an hour and a half, and then you drive back. Now it takes half an hour on Zoom. So you miss that lag time or that interaction time, the break, as you mentioned, everything that gives to the whole experience of a meeting in a sense. So yes, it's more efficient, but you lose out in that other mention.
Yeah, so I think that's what I keep saying. I think a lot of folks say that, hey, that why do we have to go back? We are being equally efficient, and to me, I think again, my opinion. I just want to qualify that is it depends on what you mean by I'm being efficient, right? Is being efficient meaning that, hey, I'm done with all the work that I was planning to do? Is that really what we want to get out in a single day? That, hey, I had 5 things to do. I've done my 5 things. A very efficient day. Sure, if that's the definition of an efficient day, great. But I think we should, look more to that, from a day, right? I mean, rather than just doing what we are supposed to do, I think it's always finding some unknown in that day, having a conversation or learning something that was not part of your schedule is equally important. I think in this Zoom world or Teams or Microsoft, whatever we use, I think our days have become very, very static and structured, right? And I sometimes believe that can hinder some growth. I think we need to live in a little bit of an unstructured time in our day that we leave it open to something new that might come across.
Very, very. No, I completely agree. And how would we go about, I don't know, substituting this free time that we used to have into our now slightly more packed days and all of that? Is there any, I don't know, strategies for emotional management of your meetings and or like replacement of the coffee shop talk that we can add into our now strange Zoom world that is also hybrid with some leaving of the house?
Yeah, I think it's always to, I guess, start some new hobbies. I would say to keep our mind a little bit occupied. And I know that was the thing, right? That, hey, everyone wanted to do something different, whether that was gardening. I mean, suddenly you went and see that there was nothing available to do gardening on. It's all sold out. Or but no, I think there's always some time to learn and read. And it also depends on whether somebody wants to read a lot, right? I think to me, I used to, but I would struggle to find time unless I was in a plane sitting for 12 hours and all I could do was read some book. But outside of that, I would struggle for time. But I think we should set up some sessions little selfishly for our own self, right? Now you call it an happy hour meeting with the team, call it a coffee hour, or find someone that you would normally not interact with and see if you could spend some time in the day reaching out and interacting with folks you normally would not, right? So I think it's important to just go a little out of script. It might not be possible every day, I get that, but I think we should make a conscious effort to do things that are out of script. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a little tiring mentally if we just go by script day in day out and the script doesn't change. I think it gets a little tiring.
Okay, I'm definitely going to make a mental note of that, and I'm definitely going to plan something in my calendar and also for my team. So if my team is watching this, beware of like what's going to come next. So what unscripted things are going to happen shortly. But no, I think that's very, very good advice, and I think as we move into this post-pandemic world, hopefully we'll move in that soon. But there is a lot that we can take from the last 2 years that should be applied. I feel moving forward, the time with family, the time, the efficiency, but there's also a lot that we need to revisit, I'd say, and that includes the unscripted part of it. So very, very good advice.
Yeah, and,
And
and, and, and like I said, our workplace culture probably is going to change after this last 2 years, right? I think before there was a lot of like, hey, either you could be a remote working from home kind of person, or you had to come to work, or sometimes it was not very very flexible. Not all organizations were very very open to kind of have an hybrid kind of a model. So I think that's going to change now. I think people, organizations would be a little more open to say that, hey, it's fine. I have a team here in the Bay Area, and if there is few more folks sitting out there in Atlanta, it's okay, because we have seen that this model works as long as we have some level of coming together. I think we'll see more and more of a little bit of a hybrid model becoming more naturally fit in organizations where it was not before. So again, there is positives to everything. And I think some of this will just make organizations a little more flexible to how the, like I said, the new generations would come and prefer to work, because they're not going to be what we were 20 years back. I think they'll all come in with fresh ideas and different ways of doing it. And whether the adaptability is just from allowing people to work from home, or just being open to any other change that the new breed of engineers or business person would bring, I think organizations definitely would be a little more open to change their ways to accommodate how people are feeling and going through.
Yep, and if it's not just the pandemic. I feel like if anything the last few years taught us is the world is changing in some
Yeah.
direction or another, and there's a lot of interesting things that will crop up. There's a lot of new things. There's a lot of uncertainty, which is good and bad, that will be propping up. And for all of us right now who are in that position where we are entering this so-called working world, the real world right now, in this time of uncertainty, we are already terrified, like as you mentioned, and being like new to the working world, being new to the corporate world and things like that. And now there's this added layer of uncertainty, of change that's happening, which again has its benefits, but also leaves us a little bit with some confusion at the very least. What's your advice to us who are just starting out in this journey right now?
It's not easy, because I think
Imagining
I,
it.
I I think it's a valid concern that you raise, and I see that in my own teams, especially people who have graduated recently, whether it was in the past semester, or maybe they're going to graduate over this winter, and come in and join the organization. I think that initial days of support, that you feel you're part of something much bigger, and you have your leaders along with you to welcome you, to kind of hold your hand. When we miss some of those initial interactions, it just, I'm not saying the folks who are not going to come out of it, but I think they would much easy I mean come out much easier if there are folks that are surrounding them. So it's going to be a challenge. I think my only advice would be that be a little patient, and find the right folks in the organization that you're comfortable with. I think it's very important to see. It doesn't have to be, hopefully it's the person that you'll end up reporting into, or leading the team, but it might be somebody else within the organization that you have chatted and you feel a connection with. And it's very important to just ask for time from those people, which, like I said, looking back, and I was telling you this earlier, which I didn't do a very good job of, where I felt like I could ask for help, but I was little, call it shy, call it not being very confident. I could not do it, but I think it is something. Just ask for help. Don't get stuck. Don't try to solve it by yourself. That, hey, I'm just going to do it. What will they think if I can't solve this by myself? So I'm going to spend my night and day trying to get it. That's not how it works. I think folks on the other side are very very welcoming to give you feedback. And I've seen folks in my team who love working with interns and new college grads, because I think us, we also feel a kick in trying to working with someone who's coming up with fresh ideas out of school. So everybody will be willing to help and be patient. So yeah, don't be shy, don't ask for help. But these are little uncertain times, so uh, there is a feeling of being a little lost out there. But again, I think having that structure, your friends around, having that constant conversation on how others are doing, it's very very important, to keep everyone kind of mentally in there when it comes to work.
No, no, very amazing. And I definitely think that's extremely good advice. Just yesterday, I'd like to show you how relevant your advice is. Just yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone from a Sanjibs who works with our students, and they were saying that many of the students worry about being perfect in a sense, or like if I make a mistake, like I will try to fix it myself so that people don't like this, so that nobody like knows about it, so that everything is good. And they said something which I think I will not forget for at least a while, where they said that you owe it to the resources that have been invested to you not to be silent, but to ask, to find ways you can grow and be better, because you may not have the experience to solve it yourself, but you have the resources, and it's kind of like those resources have been made available for you to ask those questions. So I definitely think that hearing that as well from someone like you definitely echoes the thought, and I really hope that people watching this take that up, because I feel like just the ability to go out there, reach out there, get that feedback, and the confidence to do that makes the world of difference. So, final question. I'm so sad that our interview is coming to a close. So ask you a final question. We do have some business owners and all who tune in from to this session, who tune in and listen, or some people who are top executives who watch the show previously. To all of those people right now who are on the other side of the coin, they they are probably very well established. They know their stuff. What's your advice to them in this in these extremely challenging times? I mean, you are someone who works with clients like directly, works with their team directly, works with even college students and interns. I don't know how you find the time, but like, what's your advice to them in navigating this world that they're entering now, which comes out from a much more, like I would say, comes out from a time which was very uncertain. Now we have a little bit more certainty at the very least. But again, as you said, like things are changing now. So what can they do?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the what you said at the end is very important. The world is changing, right? And I would say whether pandemic or not, the world is changing, right? So I think from folks who are focused on the business side of it, or technology, or students, I think we have to be ready to kind of also try to be that change, right? We can't be too fixated on our our way about doing things, or how we try to interpret things. I think everybody should have their own, opinion. I'm not saying they should not, but just be a little more aware of the surroundings, right? I think it's very important. Couple of things. One is be self-aware. I think it's very important, that I tell my team also, be self-aware. Some things you can do, something you cannot. Where do you need help? Where you don't. Just be very honest and be self-aware on that front. And the other thing is be aware of the surroundings. I mean, things are changing. What can make sense or make value today might not be something that works tomorrow. So try to be a little more open-minded, and yeah, be comfortable with change. I think some people don't like change, but I think we should just embrace it. Don't expect what's working today is going to expect tomorrow. Even from a business standpoint, what the clients or customers needs are today, it might not be tomorrow, and their worlds are also changing, right? As the world changes, the businesses change, the customers, how they kind of try to make their livings, that also changes. And for us who are kind of either building a solution for them or working directly with them, we should just be a little more flexible, and show a little more compassion of what people are expecting from us to deliver.
Okay, very, very good advice. I think you've covered all bases, and thank you so much for this session. I think it has been something that has been personally enlightening for me and for many of our audience members today. So thank you for your words of wisdom and for joining us today. And I really hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did on our side.
No, absolutely. I love the conversation, Harsha, and again, good luck to you and to all the listeners. And yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It makes me kind of look back on things that I have not done recently. Like, hey, did you do that? I'm like, sitting here and thinking, what did I do? When I was going through it. So it's also enlightening for me, and I'm hoping it was useful to you and your listeners.
Definitely so. And for all of you listening in, thank you so much for joining us for today's session of Changing Reality. I hope that you can take these nuggets of wisdom in your own life and change your own reality as well, so that you can achieve the things that you are passionate about. You can hone in your skills, and you can be that support system for those around you and tap into those resources around you as well. So thank you guys so much for joining in. This has been Changing Reality. And if you like today's session, we'll see you again next week, Thursday at 10 p.m. ET, and whatever time that is around the world for you. Thank you guys. And this is Harsha signing off.
You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio.